So, welcome, Long. Welcome, Stefan, to our entrepreneurial career and life design group. Please introduce yourself, and we are very happy having you here and learn about more about your topic of passion and interest and expertise.
Well, thank you, Bettina, and to everyone else. And welcome from our side to Leadership Dilemmas, Thinking East and West. And very kind, thanks, by the way, for inviting us to your group today. So my name is Stefan, and there's also Long. Just a couple of words from us. We are usually trainers in the business context, mostly, but also at universities and other organizations. I'm mostly focused on feedback, smart work, and company culture as a whole. Workshops and coachings and guiding and helping companies, especially companies, to work well. Long, in your case.
Yeah, similar. So we have a similar, the same denominator, I would say, Stefan and I. So in the business world, doing workshops and trainings. And yeah, I'm personally from Shanghai. I was born there. I moved to Germany when I was still smaller and more naive. And so I grew up in two different worlds, East and West. And with East, we mean, or it's more like, the Confucian world, so China, Korea, Japan. And West, we mean more, Westernized, democratic world where, we have the common denominator on, justice, democracy, and all of this moral, ethical, philosophical terms. And yeah, Stefan and I, we met many years ago, and we just started, over coffee chat and always exchanged about different thinking modes between Eastern and Western. And also Stefan is an academic philosopher, and my philosophy background, I would say, is more lived, so personal experience. And somehow we always find this really interesting and get to also deep into this topic. And this topic today is also how to, we think, could be applied Eastern Western thinking on a special topic called leadership dilemmas. And I would suggest, before we talk too much about us, we will just start with few infos and slides, and then we will also get to know each other better during our journey, if it's okay for you. Yeah. All right. Cool. Then.
All right. Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, I will start sharing the slides. What you will see here is a Miro presentation. Just give me a second here. Voila, can you see this? So this is a Miro board with slides.
Yes, we see everything in presenter mode.
Great, thank you. So most important point, of course, today is, why are we here? So what do you want to achieve? And I think we'll put it like this: the high art of taking a step back seems to be lost these days, right? We are over-informed and under-reflected in the public sphere, in our private lives, in the workplace. And this is especially true for leaders who are struggling with competing demands and needs and values and roles while trying to push things forward. In a way, you could also define leadership as a series of those dilemmas, of those contradictions. And the question today is, how can we take this step back and turn these dilemmas into clarity and calm? And for this, we will invite you to a journey to a mystical island today. That's precisely where we are right now. If I zoom out a little bit, you will see this. So we'll have a little journey across this island here, part of it at least. And we have 3 points in our agenda. It's the following ones. So first one, we'd like to talk about what are leadership dilemmas, why are they so tough to solve, and how to solve them by thinking East and West. And Long already mentioned this before we started the recording. It's very important for us that we don't see ourselves as experts here, at least not yet, not as masters and guides or master guides for this journey, but rather as fellow travelers, as you. And we would also seek your advice in the matter. So we also invite you very warmly to share your experiences and ideas. Just jump in any time. And if you like to add something, ask a question or to ask us to make a point a little bit more clear. All right, so let's start the journey if you like to. So we'll travel by train on this island. We'll put ourselves on this little train and move to our first station, where we will encounter our first dilemma. This is a rather simple one at the beginning. So imagine the following scenario. You're sitting in this train and you're overhearing a conversation with two people, and one of them says, "Hey, I'd really like to go on vacation the next month, but I'm really unsure. Should I take the train, or should I fly by a plane? If I take the train, I could go to beautiful Brandenburg. For the people who don't know Berlin, Brandenburg's a rural area around Berlin. I don't know, it's it's not the most attractive part of the world to go to. I mean, it's questionable, you know. But you could go there. It's not very exotic, right? And if you go by train, you will not create a lot of CO2. You're doing kind of the ethical choice, but you could also say like, hey, I really want to go to, I've never seen the pyramids. I want to go to fly to the pyramids and see this location. And while you're overhearing this, people notice this and turn around and ask yourself, so we're having this dilemma where to go, doing the ethical choice, staying in Brandenburg or going by plane to Egypt. What would you choose? We're really having a dilemma here. Can you just write in the chat just as a warm-up, what would you choose? Would you travel to Brandenburg? Or would you prefer traveling to a place which you haven't seen before, like, let's say, Egypt? Or something more exotic, just as a quick one. All right, new places, Egypt. Other places, okay, almost all of you are at Brandenburg, Michael, okay. By carbon offset, go to a new place. So you find a middle way there. Okay, thank you. So this is a very, very simple dilemma in the beginning. Very interesting to see your tendency towards seeing the new place. We continue our journey and come to another dilemma. We're still not in the business world, but we see a very, very famous ethical dilemma. It's called the Heinz dilemma. Maybe one or two of us, some of you already know this dilemma. It works like this. Your grandma is dying, unfortunately, and the only drug which could help her survive, which could save her, is there's only one drug, and the pharmacist has it, but he's charging a huge sum, 10 times more than what it actually costs. Then as the woman's grandson, you try to borrow money, but you couldn't manage on, let's say, gather the half of it, etc., and so on and so on. So you also ask the pharmacist to lower the price and pay later, but he refuses all these kind of options. Now you're faced with a question: should you break in the pharmacy and steal the medicine for your grandma to save her, or should you follow the law and well, stay at home and with your grandma while she is, let's put it that bluntly, while she's dying? What would you do? Steal the medicine, break the law, or follow the law? Steal and follow. Steal, okay. Follow. So, talk it through with grandma. See her wishes. Yeah. Steal. So we've got one kind of middle solution, and it's more or less balanced in your case. Okay. So this is kind of a warm-up for facing, let's say, tough questions, not necessarily dilemmas, but maybe it's a dilemma. And we continue our journey and come to, oops, to the next part. I think,
Yes.
Longi, do you like to take over?
Yeah, I can take over. So thank you very much for your opinions. And I will share now, I think,
Can also stop sharing here from my side.
Somehow weird, a little bit mural because it does not save the position here. I think you can see our slides now, or my slides, right?
Mhm.
All right, cool. So the question was for us. So what makes a dilemma and also how to solve? So we in the last 8 months we talked to a lot of people, leaders, or in leadership positions, and we did like over 40 interviews, and also research on papers. And in a nutshell, what we find out is, or this is how we would cluster it, and we are really also really interested in your opinion. Maybe we can do a small discussion at the end of this round. So what we found that dilemma is on an option-wise, option level, you have two choices, right? You have A or B, and they are usually mutually exclusive. So if you steal the pharmacy, you can yeah, not do the other way around. So you can do A or B. So on the option level, there's a conflict, and also going a level deeper. So neither of these options are really feels right, right? Why is that? It's because of these two dimensions. What we have found out, at least, or what we would cluster it on a social and also on a personal level. Like on a social level, what matters to the society and to other people is really within the social group also really differentiated, right? So you also said like on one side would steal the medicine, one side will obey the law, and there are a lot of gray areas in between. So what the social and our society sees as right and just and or wrong is really depending on the perspective and also on the experiences and also on a personal level, right? What I see in this context, what is right or wrong is also really depending on, well, you as a person. And there's always tension between the social side and the personal side, and also within these bubbles, within the social bubble, and also within the social personal bubble. And what is the result of this is actually you always feel like you are forced to fail. Regardless what you do, you will fail like morally, ethically on a social level, or you will fail morally or socially morally or ethically on a personal level. And we ask people what kind of signs you have that you feel that you can, tell that you feel that you are failing. And most people, and the most word or sentence what was used was like of course stuck between those two positions, right? And also the prominent signs were always you go back and forth. Should I do A? No, I should do B. And tomorrow you will redecide. There's always this hesitation. You cannot actually decide. There's always this sense of inner turmoil. This is what also a lot of people said. Some kind of inner tension, some kind of inner yeah, it's like you're a little bit sick like medically. And also a lot of people said like avoidance, and also I try to gather more information. I try to delay the decision, right? It's also this avoidance. Maybe through the delay of the decision, I will get more information, that stuff. So this is what we also have found out. And let's see if I forget some slide. And when we go into a special case of a special fragment of special taste of dilemma, we will go into this we call a leadership dilemma. So really special cases which in a corporate world exist. And there's this really interesting case we would like to share with you. So we have a lot of interesting cases. So we have to, decide also a small dilemma for ourselves. So imagine the following scenario. You are this young CEO of well, not a startup anymore, but a scale up. And this young CEO seems, quite frustrated and likes to share a dilemma with you. And she says, like, hey, a really big, important customer of us, has recently made us several, political inappropriate, let's say that way, statements, which are going a little bit to the right side. And I, as a CEO, really deeply disapprove. And this, by the way, all these cases are real life cases. And also, I also have few conversations with the customers, CEO, with the owner, and somehow this person, he's really committed to his opinion, political opinion, really committed to his view. And then numerous employees of this CEO, of this young CEO, requested actually to let this customer go. They said, hey, this is not what we value. This is not our value. We don't want to interact or do business with such kind of, political viewpoints. But there's one point which makes this maybe more of a dilemma. This customer actually helped this young CEO and this whole company through the pandemic. So this was really one of the reasons why this scale up survived the pandemic. So the CEO told us, like, okay, within this situation, should I be loyal to the customer, and oversee what a lot of my team members says, okay, let's not do business anymore with this customer, or should I be loyal to the team, and show that I'm a good CEO, I take care of my people, and let the customer go. With, like I said, the background that actually this customer helped us through the pandemic. So maybe also a question to you, what would you do, or to which direction would you tend? Maybe you can also write in the chat. So always comes first, yeah. Towards the team. Oh yeah, the time dimension is really important for the long run. Someone needs to be loyal to the team. Yeah, also more context,
Okay.
right?
Okay, just looking at the values. Team, customer, making a team decision. The case, by the way, was really tricky. They were already also discussing it in the team. It was kind of coin flip decision in the end, because it was really, really, really interesting and it was also a bit more difficult because they were in an economically difficult situation as well. So it was really, really not easy to make a decision there. And in the end, the leader had to make the call.
And what's interesting, I think, is why you have like tendencies towards one side or towards the other. And we like to ask you a question. Stephan, should I ask the question, or do you like to ask the question and take over after that? Oh, you're on mute.
Thank you, Long. So we're getting a bit interactive here, a bit more interactive than we already were. What we'd like to know from you, and I think you already started a little bit with this aspect here, is moving on to the next question. Would you kindly please analyze which elements are colliding in this dilemma? So there is a dilemma, certain things are in conflict with each other. Which elements are these? You can think of values, you can think of needs, of demands. So what are actually the things which are in conflict here, which are contradictions? Could you just write these things in the chat? We give you like a minute or so for this.
Yeah, if you want one is coming in already, the short-term, long-term perspective.
Sorry, can I ask you a question?
Colliding.
Oh, of course.
Maybe you explain, but the views of the customer, is that related to the product, or is it purely personal opinions that they don't want to identify with on the inside?
Well, this is a good question. It's a personal, let's say it's a political opinion, and the company was not a politically oriented company in that way. I mean, there's some companies who have a political agenda, but most of the people working there had some political tendency. So there was a huge overlap between, let's say, the cultural tendencies, which were infused with political views on the one hand, and the political or more or less personal political views of the customer. Yeah, offense was taken. Let's call it like that. Yeah.
Okay.
Does it make a little bit more clear? Yeah.
Sure.
It's a tricky case.
You want to know much more before you. Anyway, okay.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Just let's say from the guts. Yeah. Money versus people. Money versus people. Loyalty. So like two forms of loyalty, as I can see there. So also put this on the Miro board here. Culture. Yeah. Mission and culture.
Yeah, we'll put also here short term, long term. Yeah, I think thank you very much for your answers. So the goal is not to, identify here everything that collides, but just like direction that things are colliding here. And let's move on a little bit. And what we would say that the more tricky case with a leadership dilemma is really you always have the social perspective, right? You always have this personal perspective. And leadership dilemma has a more increased complexity, which you always have this professional role, professional perspective as well. Like literally you sign a contract that maybe, the organization comes first or money comes first or profit comes first, but somehow it's still colliding with all the social and personal stuff. So this is how we would, I think, categorize the distinctions between, life dilemmas or professional leadership dilemmas. So always this roles responsibility in the organization has to be in mind as well. And thank you, Stephan.
You're welcome.
And somehow we think that the elements of a dilemma which are colliding could be somehow in one or more or clustered in this three dimensions: social, personal, and professional. And what we also found out, or our insight, is when we ask people like, okay, how actually did you approach this dilemma situation? And there are, I would say there would be like a pattern which we discovered. And somehow this pattern is really similar to our discussions or discussions between Stephan and I about Eastern Western thinking and the philosophical perspective we have. And this is what we just come up with an idea. Maybe this difference of Eastern Western thinking can actually help us to navigate the dilemmas easier or with more confidence, with more clarity. And yeah, let's move a little bit further. And therefore, Stephan, I think I will stop sharing now and you can take over.
Yeah, I think I'm already sharing, am I? Yeah.
All right, then I will just
So the main question for us, of course, was to how can we overcome leadership dilemmas? And as we already said, we have like a specific approach, but before we come to this approach, the tricky thing here is, especially if you have these kind of three dimensions with social, individual, and professional, it's very, very difficult often to get out of this dilemma. So there is no perfect solution. And there's even in many cases not a classical solution by doing a risk assessment, by finding some kind of middle way, or by wiggling yourself out, or by talking to everyone, etc. So in the end, the dilemma remains a dilemma. But what we can find in these dilemmas without breaking the dilemma are three things. First, clarity, in a way of finding out what's really important for us. I think Kate was already talking about values before, especially what's important for us when it comes to this individual, professional, and social dimension. Second, we can find calm or confidence, if you like to, when making our decision. And third, we can find the right words or way how to convey to bring across our decision in the end. So it's still possible that we are in the dilemma, but we can gain clarity, calm, and a voice without breaking the dilemma. This is in a way a completely different solution than finding a middle ground and finding a perfect solution.
Yeah.
Now the question.
And Stephan, sorry if I can add to that. I think this was also a really interesting process for us too, right? That our approach, like at the end, we somehow had the goal or dream, the wish that we somehow find during the interviews that there's a special kind of people who can like make this dilemma vanish, like finding a perfect solution where you can have A or B. This was really seldom the case. The more we talk to people, the more was the case that the dilemma vanishes, that people are, like Stephan said, are really clear about what kind of elements, values, and all the other things are colliding, that they can voice it, they can really write it down, and then proactively define a vantage point, a perspective that, okay, I will go for B, I will steal the medicine with all the consequences, or I will let my grandma die without stealing and not compromise my justice value, and that was also really interesting finding for us when we, try to gather all the data and make something logical from it. It's not about finding a perfect third solution or something, but more about a clear vantage point.
And in a way, you could also say
it
creates a balance. Thank you, Lauren. It could also say it creates a balance for the people who have to make the decision. Yeah, the question is how to achieve that. And we found out that, especially when we had these conversations, as Long said before, that switching from two perspectives, from an Eastern or let's call it Far Eastern, and a Western perspective, helps a lot to bring this balance, to bring this clarity, calm, and the voice when turning dilemmas into something which we can actually work with. And this is something we'd like to delve into a little bit, like combining dissolves these dilemmas, right? Another interesting question is like, what's so special about the Eastern and the Western thinking that helps us by changing the perspectives, respectively, to dissolve the problem we have here, or the dilemmas, or very tough questions. And this brings us to the meaty stuff today. So what's the difference between Western and Eastern thinking? We found out, I mean, that there are a lot of differences. Some of them are culturally like a very, very, very old, like hundreds and thousands of years old. And we are painting with very broad strokes here. I mean, there's not the Far Eastern perspective. There's not the Western perspective. There are huge differences, of course, between Germans, Italians, Americans, etc., which would also all count as a Western perspective. And there are huge differences between Japanese and Chinese people and Korean people. But still, there are certain tendencies. And these tendencies are extremely helpful, we would say, to solve tough decisions, especially leadership decisions. So There's individual versus community, and initiative versus patience, universal versus situational, and analytic versus holistic. I will give you some examples so it becomes a bit more palpable for you. So the first one is individual versus community. So the Western culture often highlights the individual as, well, let's say as an actual agent of change with personal goals than freedom. And self-reliance and personal success are extremely important. They're very highly valued here. And the view sees the individual. So they look rather at the individual and not so much as at the collective. A kind of a caricature could be that the Western sees him or herself as a form of a unicorn, more or less separated from the group. And in contrast, Eastern thought places greater emphasis on the collective, on the family, community, society at large. And success is here more seen, less seen as an individual achievement, but as something that comes from harmony, from a harmonious relationship, and the alignment of personal actions with the interests of the group. It's also a very interesting thing if you, for example, try to describe yourself in 3 words. You think, oh, hey, Barbara, I want to describe myself. Sorry, I'm not asking you directly here. I'm just like, because I see your face. What are the 3 words which would describe you? If you just have to write them off, like from your guts, which would that be? I'm not asking you just like for a thought experiment. Also, Bettina, what would be the words here? Okay, networker, extrovert, explorative. Thank you, Bettina. Maybe one or 2 more if you would. 3 words. It's not so easy, I know, to bring it down on a couple of words. It's of course not exhaustive. Strategist, yeah, explorer as well. Okay, and human-centered. Okay, yeah. Thank you, Barbara and Bettina. Interestingly, this pretty much matches with what we with the difference between Eastern and Western thinking. If you look at the Western thinking, you ask people from the West how they would describe themselves, they usually tend to give character traits, roles, and activities like curious, innovator, I'm very decisive, I do sport, I do cooking, or as you said, I'm strategist, I'm a networker, I'm an explorer, and so on. So Western tends to focus on character traits, and in the East, focusing more on context-based traits, and especially on social-based roles and activities. Like I love to cook dinner with my friends. I'm very serious at work. I play basketball with my team, etc. So it's much more socialized. It's much more seen in a certain context, and less abstract and less focused on individual properties. First difference, very interesting difference. Connector, educator, lifelong learner, yeah, also falls in the Western trait category. So this is the first difference. Second one is initiative versus patience. Very interesting difference here as well. So the Western worldview is often characterized by quick action and decisions, and especially decisive behavior. I think we had the decisive also before, and especially the ability to drive things forward. It's rooted in the sense of individual agency and of willpower, and in the belief that yes, you can, right? Yes, you can and should change the world through direct action. So this is the West, and give me a second here. And in the East, it's more about patience, values patience and the wisdom to wait for the right moment. And the idea is here not so much to force something or force a situation, but to observe the world and the natural flow of things, and then act when the time is right. We can visualize this with the difference between boxing and Aikido, right? Boxing is a confrontative approach. Aikido is more like waiting for the right moment. Another one would be universal versus situational. So in Western thought, there's a focus on universal truths and fixed rules that guide our behavior. So problems are usually solved by applying clear principles, models, frameworks that are seen as something which is universal and valid for everything. So then there's always, so once there's some kind of right principle identified, it's applied more or less consistently to the empiric world, and with it is slightly exaggerating here with little regard to the particularities to the situation. And on the other hand, in Eastern thought, it's deeply context-driven. That's rather than sticking to fixed principles, decisions are made on aspects of the moment, of the situation, of the potential of the situation, and how like different elements interact in the context. So it's less about the universal rule, but more about adapting fluidly to the situation. In a way, you could say, make the difference between someone in Munich waiting at the lights because it's red, and if it's red, you're not walking. And someone from the East, if there's not a camera around, you would usually say, I'm like, the traffic lights are more or less some kind of recommendation, but not more. So I go with the flow. You can also see this in the difference between the rule-based traffic in Germany or the more context-based traffic in countries like Thailand, India, etc. Also between the Kantian ethics by Immanuel Kant on the one hand, which tries to create universal rules, and then having much more context-based philosophies in the East. And the last point, it's actually one of my favorite ones, analytic versus holistic. It's the last one here. And in a way, we already did this when we were analyzing certain elements which are typical for the situation. Here, this would be the Western approach. So here we try to understand the problem by being analytic. So it usually involves breaking down the problem into its components, into its elements, isolating variables, examining them individually to understand the whole. And in Western thought, on the other hand, the opposite direction, embraces a holistic view, and rather than breaking things down, it looks at how all these elements fit together, how they influence together, how they form a cohesive world. Here's some examples for that. Very interesting, by the way. I don't know if anyone of you has children. So children's drawings here. Barbara is nodding, you can see. On the left hand, there you have got Westerners, Western children. I think the age is, I think it's like 3 to 4. It's an abstract depiction of that. They were asking to, hey, draw a picture of your family and your life. And the typical Western way is to put things neatly on a line, right? There's the house, mom and dad, there's me, there's my tree house. Usually there's a sun in the corner, etc. So it's very analytic. And in the Eastern world, it's different. So everything's kind of seen from, let's see, in an isometric view, right? It's from slightly above. So the horizontal line is different. You can pretty clearly make a difference between the lower horizontal line in the West and the higher in the East. So things in the, let's say, Japanese children is more seeing, things are more seeing in context with interaction with each other. Very typical also, and there's a slight overlap with the first category. In the East, much often the individual is seen on the right hand in the context of the whole, like here in the landscape, while in the East, in the West, there's a tendency to depict the individual, to pronounce the individual much more, to analyze certain figures in a scenario. And the last thing is also connected to categories. If you ask Westerners, put these 3 things in a category, I don't know, what 2 things would you put in the category? But Westerners tend to, like 60% of Westerners tend to put the cow and the ape in the same category. Why? Because they are mammals, right? But you could also put the cow and the flower in the category because the cow eats the flower. So it's more or less about the relationship, about how things actually stay in relation to each other and form a whole symbiotic whole. That's kind of holistic view. So this is the last difference. And we try to put these differences into practice. Going from, that's the next slide, yeah, going from the analytic view to the holistic view and the other way around, going from universal to situational, and so on. Along, would you like to
take
over?
Yeah, I can take over. Thank you. And should I share my screen again? Maybe last
I
time.
can also.
Also looking at the time. So I think. Okay, I think let me quickly share my screen, Stefan.
Sure.
So I know what I. So what Stefan said, like we tried to analyze all these findings from our interviews and from our research, and what we think it could work that we put all these differences, just differences how we think into different stage of well seeing how dilemma works. So what we actually did with you with the question is from this case, like what kind of elements within these dilemmas are colliding. This is actually a really Western thinking mode. And when we ask like friends and family in Asia to approach this dilemma, let me quickly check where our slide is. Um, we found it interesting. I will take this actually. Just give me a second. We found interesting, different perspective, right? So, and the Western perspective is more like, okay, what are the elements like colliding? And okay, this is the element of loyalty, loyalty to the customer, loyalty to the team. And what we think from the Eastern perspective is actually they are asking different questions, like rather than what is colliding, they are asking like, okay, what's actually important to them in the first place? You know, they switch the context, switch the thinking, let's say level, thinking dimension. And interestingly enough, it's not about loyalty anymore. It's maybe about appreciation. Just let me, maybe it's more about appreciation versus profit, and it's maybe more about trust. It's more about respect, and this is a really interesting finding. So what we found out on the different levels actually from Eastern thinking, instead of thinking as things colliding yin yang, we try to find a higher higher order maybe, or totally different context. It's not about being loyalty to the customer versus being loyal to the team. It's actually about long-term trust. And then the question actually how to solve the dilemma changes, right? It's not about, okay, should I um, decide for my team, or should I decide for the customer? The question somehow becomes to what if both sides of this dilemma, like loyal to the customer, loyal to the team, were just different expression of the same fundamental principle? So we somehow turned this question into a different context. And the question could be, instead of, okay, what is the correct side to choose, left or right? It could be, what do we need to maintain trust? What do we need to maintain appreciation? What do we need to maintain, harmony or respect? So this is a really interesting finding to how people respond to this tension and this collision. And we think that if we go deeper into our research and have more insights, it could be really a valuable approach to think one time from the Western, which is really, what Stefan said, analytical and really a linear approach, and the individualistic approach, like what the leader should do. And then, or vice versa, whatever the order is, then from a totally, contrary world of view, how this holistical approach could be, how a collectivistic approach could be. It can generate, it will not generate we would say would not generate a perfect solution, but it will just help you to come up with more differentiated questions or even better questions to actually find out your vantage point, your worldview, right? To really know, okay, I'm standing on the left side because of these values, because I have pinpointed these values, or I'm standing more on the right side because I'm more with these values, right? So this is what we think could be approach to well, analyze sounds now Western, to just understand the dilemma better from a really pinpointed, detailed level, but also from a holistic, broader level. Yeah, anything to add, Stephan?
Well, I think it would be very helpful to bring you into the conversation and maybe create more clarity for you on the one hand and see your point of view here. We have 2 questions for you if you like to. You can also like join in any way you want, but two questions which we're really interested in. Long, could you move the map a little bit?
Yeah. So we are actually leaving we try to make it somehow visual. This is like a really meta topic, and we are also struggling like how to bring what we feel, and not only things, what we also have been feeling. This could be a really valuable model into something explicit. So we thought we just use this metaphor of a dilemma island. So we went here, and then we just dive into a small topic of Eastern Western thinking, how to approach dilemmas. And now at the end, we are leaving this island, and we are really eager to hear your first impression of that research. Yeah, what was valuable for you today, if anything, and also what we think maybe that's also a topic which can apply not only on the topic on dilemmas, but maybe also on different topics we are not sure. It's just like a hunch feeling. Maybe that's also a really interesting question throwing at you. So yeah, I would say thank you very much, first of all, for listening and for your time and for the opportunity to present and also tap your smart minds. Yeah, let's have a chat. Stephan, like anything to add?
I'm really curious. What did you find valuable?
So I just stopped the taping